Testing. Good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and start making our way to our seats so we can make sure we make time to be able to hear our phenomenal group of speakers this morning. And I'm already trying to figure out who's going to be the last person to find their seat. I think it'll probably be Ross Briles will probably be the last person to find his seat. I know John Grover back there, he would be my second choice to not find his seat. So get going here. Great. Really excited about our meeting today. But let's go ahead and let's start off with prayer, okay? Join me, please. Father, we just really want to just take this time this morning again with grateful hearts to just extol your name and to thank you for everything that you're doing in each of our individual lives. Father, but in particular, we're thankful for what you're doing in our community. Father, there's a sense that you're working in our own hearts, in our own lives, to teach us what community is all about. Father, continue to give us open minds and open hearts in the capacity to love one another, in the capacity to care for those that are around us, and for us to be a community, Lord, that cares. And we know that it can only happen as you continue to change our hearts and to point us towards you and to lead us so that this can be and will become a great city. We thank you for our time together. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Isn't it cool what God's doing in our city? I mean, there's just such amazing things that are going on. And that's the purpose of us getting together. We're talking about, oh, you got my name up there. Thanks, Jeff. I didn't know. So obviously, we try to get together as area leaders and influencers, trying to connect so that we can be catalysts for one another to be able to lead and have influence in our community. And that's really our goal. And I don't know, I for one am seeing it. I don't know, kind of just a show of hands. Are you seeing something different happening in our community? What is that? I just really quickly, just cooperation? Cooperation. Any other words? What else is happening? Just words. Cooperation, collaboration, wow, 3 C's. We'll stop with that. 3 C's with that. So anyway, so what I want you guys to do is make sure you take a look on your tables, and what I want to ensure that you guys are signing up. If you're a regular attendee, go ahead and fill that out. Now, I don't think Lonnie Davis is here, but he ends up putting things down like Paul McCartney and things like that. So make sure you put down your real name so we don't have to try to figure out who you are. Because that's sometimes pretty hard. And then obviously if you're new to Catalyst for the first time, please fill this out. We'd love to be able to have the information and give you as much information about us as possible. And finally, I want to point to the Catalyst sheet here that really kind of talks. And today it has a great picture of Kris. Really, really nice, Kris. Your mom provided for us. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then also just taking a look at some upcoming catalysts. I know we have actually our own Marvin. I don't know why do I call you Marvin? I'm not quite sure. Because he gets mad, that's why. He doesn't like it. But our own Marvin Jacobo. Because he does magic. Okay, yeah, Marvin does magic. But he's going to be sharing with us next month and really kind of sharing what's on his heart and where we are going as a organization, Catalyst. And then after that, we have John Talbert, who's the Chief Convening Officer or Bishop of the Bay. I'm not sure, but Marvin has just said some great things. And I think the thing that we're probably most proud of is, if you look at the back here, our community networks. Take a look at that, because this is just a huge resource. And as we look at things and we evaluate what God is doing in our community, we continually pray for you and pray for these networks, that God would continue to make them really effective in bringing healing to our community. So Let's see, what else? Jeff gave me a list of things here. And I think, oh, one other thing. Do we have the Pastors Network today, Marvin?
Yes, sir.
And Marvin, you generally pay that out of your own pocket. Okay, thank you, Marvin. See, such a humble guy. Thank you. And he does magic, everything. So what I want you to do now is I want you guys all to stand up because there's a question that we're going to pose and we're going to have you do. And one of the things that is really important is I want you to pretend that this is a map of the United States. And you guys are like in Florida over here, and you got New York over there, and you got California over here. So we want you to go and meet somebody who you haven't met before. Plus, this is an opportunity for you to leave your state, your area that you're in. And I want you to ask this question. And I can't remember if we're supposed to ask one person or two persons. Jeff, can you remind me? One person. Find one person. This is, in many ways where we really start to build some community. Ask that person, name two events in your life that have shaped the kind of leader you are today. Two events, okay? So let's do it. Let's be really effective in meeting somebody and going out.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all this morning. We're going to get our panel up here. And while they're coming, I'll introduce myself. Kris Helton, community advocate, born and raised Modesto, grew up down the street over by Crusader Park. Canna boy, right? Last time we talked about it. So excited to be here this morning. I love Modesto, and I'm passionate about Modesto and the things that are happening and how fortunate I am to be able to work with people like these three. So let me introduce them really quick. Yamilet Valladolid. She's Modesto born and raised, beloved in our community. I said it, I know, right? Is that one? She's a supervisor for El Concilio and the current president of the Latino Business Association Foundation. She was honored in 2013 as one of the Outstanding Women of the Year in Stanislaus County, as well earning numerous recognitions in our community. So Kate Trompetter, Modesto born and raised, is the Center for Human Services Director of Development. She's a co-chair of Leadership Modesto, and she was honored as one of the 2014 Outstanding Women of the Year in Stanislaus County by the Stanislaus County Commission for Women and one of the Modesto Bee's Outstanding Young Leaders for 2016. And we have Reggie Rucker. He's the founder of Engaged by Reggie Rucker, a social media consulting firm. Having moved with his family to Modesto in 1992, Reggie works to highlight what's best in Modesto. Deservedly, he was recently honored as one of the Modesto Bee's Outstanding Young Leaders for 2016. And so somebody once told me that to be a leader, you got to learn how to be a servant first. And let me tell you, I'd mentioned that I'd been able to work with these three. And honestly, as we look back over maybe the last 10 years of the things that we've done in this community, they truly are servants, and they love this community. They're passionate. That's why we've chosen them to be up here and talk a little bit this morning about what leadership is. So we got a series of questions. We really just want to have a conversation and understand a little bit more about who they are and what's going on in the community. So we could sit and have a conversation for hours. We do it oftentimes, but we'll try and keep it to 25 minutes this morning. So let's start with our first question. Let's go to Yamilet. So what is it that draws you in your generation to work together with others for the betterment of this community?
Well, one of the things that draws me and drew me really, truly is the fact that you really have to listen to your heart, and you have to, if you're going to get involved, it has to be something that's going to feed your heart. And in my case, it was more the education piece was really important to me as a first generation, first college graduate in my family. And so being able to mentor others that possibly face the same barriers that I did. So that's why I started getting involved with the Latino Business Association Foundation and the Hispanic Leadership Council. And then from there, it just kind of, it really draws you to, you learn so much from others, from sitting down, just having coffee and learning from each other. That's extremely important. From people that different generations, people of different cultures, people that have different religion. I think it's extremely important to sit down and talk to them, and you learn so much from that, and that draws you.
Yeah, I think I would add, you mentioned the service aspect of it, and so for me, when I sit in a room like this or just talk to people, there's so many ideas that come out from when you have conversations. Oh, we should do this, we should do that. And so for me, I've just always had the mindset of taking that should out of it and say, okay, let's just do it, And so when we have ideas or conversations, it's just a matter of making things happen. And so I guess for the last 10 years, I think that's something that I've tried to really just be a part of is, okay, let's take an idea and let's just make it happen. And whether it's great or it's okay, like at least we started the ball moving forward. And so that's what I've always tried to push,
Very good. So Kate, with you and all the things that you're involved in, what draws you to be involved?
I was thinking last night about this question, and what's that saying that necessity is the mother of invention? And one of the things that draws me to getting engaged is I just really want to feel great about where I live. And I feel a tremendous amount of responsibility to be engaged in making this place what I want it to be for myself and my peers and for my kids. I have 3, and I found myself in a meeting recently and talking to somebody who'd recently moved here, and I heard myself say out loud, in 10 years, I think my daughter's going to be growing up somewhere really cool. And I felt really good about that. It's like a level of optimism I didn't know I had. So I get engaged because I feel like I have a responsibility to create my own reality, and I care about this place very much.
So let's talk a little bit about the ones who've gone before us. And feel free to mention anybody. Marvin, for me, he was my youth leader growing up, and we didn't get along very well, but we get along really well now. But no, he was highly influential, more than I thought, and it's been amazing. But let's talk about the people who've gone before us in this community and who they are maybe and what they mean to you and what you've learned from them.
I know, for me, so my first job was with Todd Aronson. He had Republic Marketing. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him. But he was the coolest guy. I learned a lot from him professionally, but what was really great was that he allowed me to miss work for all sorts of random things. And so it was like, oh, you want to do Commonwealth? Oh yeah, go for it. Oh, you want to do a 3-on-3 basketball tournament with us? Yeah, sure, do it. And so he was just super supportive in allowing me to get outside of the office and do stuff that wasn't really my job, because I think he understood that the more that we could make this community a better place to live, it was better for everybody involved and better for business too. But yeah, he was just really cool that way. And so that's something I always try to, take into my work and just approach to life is, everything that we do is really part of our daily jobs and routines. And so that was one for me.
Well, for me, truly is when people tell you, hey, let's meet up, let's talk. Do take it seriously, and you can learn from them. I learned a lot through the Latino Business Association Foundation. Ralph Juarez, Joe Duran is here, and it's just, you really take them seriously. Sit down with them, talk to them, and that's what helped me. Dale Butler, amazing leader also. So yeah, definitely, I would have to say sit down and learn from them.
Thank you.
Yeah, the list would be really, really long, but I just am thinking about a conversation I just had 5 minutes ago with James Bates about recently, in the last few years, getting to meet a gentleman named Elliot Began, whose leadership philosophy is that leadership is really about getting things done through others. And I was reflecting on this in a speech I gave recently, too, about that's what mentorship is about. I thought a lot about my mom and my dad and people like Kenny Friedman and Betty Bell Smith and these folks who are just really about engaging other people and helping them have the impact they desire to have in the world. And that's what I feel like my role is as a leader too, is just to ignite and help people discover what's great about themselves so that they can create change. So
Sure, great. So let's go off script a little bit. Surprise you guys. We talked a little bit about communication, collaboration, and connecting with each other. And what I want to talk about is we were sitting at our table and we were discussing the things that we were going to say, and we see each other a lot at a lot of different meetings. There's all kinds of things that are happening in the community all the time. And what does that look like and feel like, how those groups are communicating and collaborating? Do you see that happening? And if you do, how do you see that happening? And if you don't, what do you think we can do to make that better? Go ahead, Reggie.
So yeah, I think one of the things that I'm aware of for sure is to the extent that we are looking to individuals to make a difference. And I think one of the things that's going to be important going forward is how we build that base. I think we were having this conversation earlier, but how do we get, especially for me, I think one of my passions and something I hope to be able to build on is how do we get students from State or even down at the high school level. My brother is here, he does a lot of work with the BSU clubs and kind of building leaderships in high school. But how do we really find leaders that are, in middle school, junior, elementary school, and say, okay, they're the class president of the 6th grade. Like, we need to make sure that we're following them and keeping them here, or once they graduate, getting them to come back, because we can have we had the 20 under 40, right, and that was an amazing honor. But 20 of us, 40 of us, 80 of us can't do it. We need to continue to build more leaders in the community, and so to the extent that we can do that, I think it's going to make our long-term prospects a lot better as a community. So.
Yeah, can I go ahead and add to that? I think just adjacent to that, I was thinking a lot about how we see a lot of the same people at the same things. And that's not a criticism, it's an observation. And that there are any number of people in this community who are looking to get engaged and are seeing leadership in a different way. I think that, Rotary serves a purpose, Kiwanis serves a purpose, Leadership Modesto serves a purpose, and the NLN and the ALF and all the different acronyms that you could think of, but that there's just any number of different ways people can get engaged in leadership, and we need to cast our net wider. Because I think the other thing that's really alive for people, and I'm speaking for myself, but I think I represent the group, is that collaboration is critical for us. We want to do things with each other. We want to be in meaningful relationships with one another. We believe that's a foundation for leadership. I mean, you guys are a perfect example of that. So we're really working hard to make sure that we're engaging people at various levels of income, gender, ethnicity, and that it doesn't look the way that it's always looked.
Sure. So Joe mentioned earlier that there's something going on in Modesto. What is it? What do you think it is? I mean, because there is something going on in Modesto. We've been involved for quite a while, and it feels a little bit different. You got a lot of things going on with focus on prevention. There's leadership clubs. What do you think? Yamilet, what do you think's going on?
Well, definitely, we feel that good vibe, and people are starting to work with each other. And just like I'm really going to take on what Kate said, it is important that the fabric of our community is represented in all different levels. And so that's extremely important to bring in people from different ethnicities, bring in people from different genders, obviously, and different backgrounds. That's just different generations also, is what Reggie was saying. But there's a lot of movement and a lot of the same language with the prevention focus. That's a great movement, and we're going to see a lot of that because it's a 10-year plan, and I really like to see so many people that are engaged with that. So I really like the collaborations that are starting, but there obviously needs to be more, so we have to be more open. We have to reach out to our neighbors and include them in the conversations.
I want to add, I think, I can speak, probably I have an awareness for maybe the past 10 years, but I'm confident in saying that for 10 years before that, there was a lot of conversation, and there's a lot of people talking, like, again, the we should, or it would be great if, and I kind of feel like people just got tired of talking. I think that there was so much conversation. It's like, okay, we've been talking about this for 10 years, let's actually do something. So I think there's just a lot of people in this room and around the community that was like, all right, enough talk, let's do it, so.
Yeah, that's the word that's really present for me is movement and trust. And I just feel like there is a movement happening in a variety of different ways, whether it's focus on prevention or all the things happening in downtown with the downtown market and groups like this getting together, that there's just people are open and they're trusting in the process. And, I think really, really cool things are about to happen and are already happening, but even more, I think, are coming.
That's great. I like that, movement and trust. It really does feel like there's a lot of movement and a lot of trust across all different sectors in this community, and it is fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about, so since you're all leaders and you like to brainstorm and figure things out, so let's figure out how we can avoid burnout. Oftentimes it's the 80-20 rule. You got 20% doing 80% of the work. What are some ways that you've either found or let's think about what we can do to try and avoid some of the burnout that eventually comes?
Well, again, we have to listen to our heart and get involved in the things that truly do feed our heart. That's extremely important. And also be able to connect with others and do the things that we love, whether it's reading, whether it's going out and watching a movie, because we also have, and spending time with our wonderful families and friends, that's extremely important. And I've found that a lot of the people that I'm closest to, like a lot of my good friends, we're all into like the same, the same movement. Because you're drawn to people that are like-minded, so you can do that too. Just sit down and talk and really take care. Self-care is extremely important because in order for us to continue to do a good job in our community, is we also have to look after ourselves and our families too. That's very imperative.
I absolutely agree with Yamilet, and I was just thinking about how I'm very interested in doing things and having impact around areas of things that I'm passionate about. So I don't believe that we're about checking things off lists or joining things so that we can add them to our resumes. And so I think that requires we all have to listen hard to each other so that we can figure out where you focus on where you have influence, right? And you have influence over things you feel really passionately about. And the other thing about burnout, I was just telling these guys this morning that I have these notes, which I'm obviously not using, but I was taking notes last night about some of the questions, and then I was looking at my paper, and on the back I have a beginning new org chart for my department, and my daughter learning to write her name. And that, to me, like, this piece of paper is just so representative of how we're trying to balance things. I don't want to just be a wife. I don't want to just be a mom. There's so much value in those things for me. They're the best decisions I ever made in my life, but I want to be an active community member. I want to talk to people like you. I want to work really hard for my organization, and balance is critical. So you avoid burnout by not expecting the same people to do everything all the time. Again, why we have to cast our net wider, I think. And we want to be with each other. And we want there to be more people who want to do stuff like this and make things happen.
I think the way you started the question was interesting to me, because you mentioned as leaders, we like to try to figure things out. And one of the things that I've learned recently, and I kind of have to be aware of personally, is that I have that tendency to want to figure it out and then go do it. But there's so much value in taking a step back and saying, okay, let's share this responsibility. Let's talk about this together. How can we all contribute and all be a part of it? And then again, and it goes back to a little bit what Yamilet was saying too, in terms of, there is value to working and doing, but then there's also value I read recently where some of the most successful people in the world aren't successful because they do a lot, but because they take, it was like 5 hours a week to either read, reflect, or experiment. And so those are things that aren't necessarily actively doing, but it's about learning about yourself and your community and your environment. And so taking a step back to just breathe and acknowledge the world around you and get better by reflection and reading. I think those things are equally valuable and kind of will help prevent that burnout.
Sure. Very good. Thank you. That's balance is really important. A few months ago, I sat down and kind of mastermind my life and tried to figure out where there was balance. I have 3 kids as well, and it feels like it's crazy sometimes. So that balance is a huge and amazing thing. So we're blowing through these questions. We're going to do a couple of things. We'll do one more, and then I want you to maybe say something that you feel you're passionate about. And then I'd like to see if we could do a couple of questions. I'm sure there's probably some questions out there. So we talked about collaboration. So what do you see in the future with all this momentum that we have going, all these groups that we have going on? What's the evidence? I can read the question, but let's think of it this way. What's it going to take for us to continue to collaborate and work together to find that balance, to not burn out? Maybe in 5 years. What do you think it's going to look like in 5 years?
Well, I'm going to take on what Kate said about being responsible. Like I feel I have that responsibility for a better community, and share that responsibility with others. Like what Reggie was saying, there's people that do want to get involved, but they don't know how. And so bringing them, inviting them, that's very important. That's how I got involved. I didn't know where to start, but there were some amazing people that said, hey, come to this meeting, or let's sit down, let's talk. And I learned so much from that. So I think that's extremely important. Share the responsibility, and it's still be responsible because this is our community, and we want definitely this community to grow into continue to grow in the right direction as we're growing. So that's what I would say.
I think leadership is kind of, it's an intimidating word. And so when you start throwing it around and they start putting you up on panels and you have to start speaking in front of audiences and it's just like really weird, right? And so, but I think if we really kind of just took a step back, and this is something that I'm starting to learn, is that like really we are all leaders in one form or another, whether you're a parent or you're a teacher or like there's some part of your life in which you're a leader. And so if you're able to kind of divorce yourself from that intimidating word and just acknowledge that, you know, you have a responsibility to at least one other person to make their life better, if we all kind of just have that outlook, then I think it'll be less intimidating, but we'll be more willing to take those responsibilities and make action happen and move things forward. So.
I feel like Reggie just teed me up. I was just thinking about how it's all definitions, and that part of me feels like I'm sort of pushing against this definition of leadership that means you have to do things a certain way, or you have to be able to write a check, or you have to be able to go to this club, or those kinds of things, and that it's just starting to look different, and we have to embrace that in every way, in every group and at every age, and that leadership can look in whatever way it needs to look for that person, because it's just all about having impact and growing people and growing community. And one of the things James and I were talking about this morning too, that I think is really important for all of these movements and these groups, is that there really can be no other. I said this recently too, that my mom said to me at one point, something like the only distance between us is the distance, us and them. The only distance between us and them is the distance we impose. And that there's all these efforts, and they're all fabulous. And you know, we are better than no one, right? And the most impact we can have is, you know, as much as we're willing to collaborate with each other, that's the amount of impact we can have.
You know, so what's great about this whole thing, we started out talking about what leadership is, and as you can see, leadership isn't about being a leader, it's about being a servant. I mean, it's really what it is, about being a servant. And as we look around the community and we look at all of you out there, you're serving the community, you're getting involved, you're taking the time to be a servant to those around you, and it's important, and you're being intentional. And I applaud everyone that's here this morning because they're servants and they care. And it's really amazing to see what's going on. You know, some of the things and conversations I've been having with others around is now that there's such a huge movement with the neighborhood associations and what's going on and focus on prevention, there's starting to be these micro conversations about maybe different areas of the community. How can we impact this specific area, and how can we impact this specific area as a group together? Because now that we've got a good picture of everything that's going on, we have the ability to work together to serve specific areas. And it's been really, really fantastic to see. So thank you all very much. I would love to open it up for some questions. Does anybody have any questions? I know Curtis Grant's got to have one or two.
There's one over there. Go ahead.
Here, I'll jump down there.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much for offering your time this morning. It's great to see a great representation from your generation coming up and helping. The question is, as you look around the room and you see lots of gray hair and wrinkled faces, if you went back in time, and Reggie kind of alluded to this a little bit, if you went back in time, what would you tell a younger you?
That is an incredible question. I think for me, it would probably just be to be more aware about the people around me and the willingness for other people to help. The story that I shared earlier about what kind of shaped me into the leader that I am today was really a lot about individual and personal responsibility. Is about how much can I do. And while that's, I'm sure that has value, but what I'm learning now and trying to embrace is that how much can we do? And so to the extent that I still can, I hope I'm still young enough to be able to apply this, but to be able to embrace the fact that we can definitely do more together, and that there are other people that are willing to help if I'm willing to share the burden. I think that's something that I would try to tell myself even earlier is, okay, before trying to do something, my first step should always be trying to find other people who are capable and willing to help me do it. So that would be mine, I guess.
I think I would reflect back in high school, and I would be more involved in some high school clubs. I was so focused on working, so I graduated early, and I wanted to go to work. I wanted to go to school, and but still, being able to enjoy every single stage of your life to the fullest. So I think that's what I would say.
Two things are coming up for me. I would have told myself to hang out with Reggie in high school. So we went to high school together. And the other thing, so this has been really present for me in my adult life, and I think I would have tried to tend to this when I was younger if I had my wits about me. But I've been working a lot with the idea of like soul versus ego. And I am very willing to admit that I have led a predominantly ego-driven life through most of my 20s and my early 30s. And that's not a bad thing. I just think that sometimes we can get things a little out of balance. And what I started to discover about myself when I was really tending to what my calling was or what my soul wanted, and Yamilet and I were talking about this a little bit this morning, is that I started to want really different things. And it wasn't, and I alluded to this earlier, but it wasn't about like how many things I could put on my resume or what's the next group I could join or the board that I could be on, but it was really about focusing on where I had influence. So I don't know, I would have tended to that in some way long ago, just making sure people know they have the freedom to do that like this is, you define your impact in the world, and you don't let other people define what that's supposed to look like for you.
And I would add too, I think one of the things that I'm experiencing is that I'm becoming really gray really fast, and starting to get wrinkles too. And I think that that's because I'm trying to do too much myself. And so I'm going to try to avoid being old and gray by sharing the burden a little bit. So.
Good luck with that.
One of you, Kate, I believe, you answered part of the question I have for you. It's, in ministry, starting out as a younger person, I was always told, focus on what God wants you to do, not what people want you to do. Could you answer that for me, please? What are you doing?
Can you just say a little bit more about are you asking me to reflect on like the difference between what other people want you to do and what your calling is?
Yes, in leadership, a lot of times you're being asked to do more than you can do, like the 20%, 80%. That's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really just aligned with what I said earlier, which is I'm asking myself why a lot. So somebody says, hey, you should really do this. You should go through ALF, or you should join this board. And 5 years ago, I would have said, yes, sign me up, because that sounds fabulous, and I know I can change the world if I just do this one more thing. And then all of a sudden, I haven't seen my husband in 2 weeks, and my daughter doesn't know who I am, and but I think that I'm just spending a lot of time saying, okay, why would I do this? And if the answer is truly that I could have impact and that it's a mutually beneficial relationship, then I say yes. But I think that that's like this sounds a little conceited, but that's a maturity that I've gained, that you just have to be cautious. I mean, what's that like, you can't take care of other people, you have the most impact if you take care of yourself, and I just want to be where I can do the most good, and that means not getting overcommitted.
Yeah, I think, for me, one of the things that I've noticed and tried to be aware of recently is just making sure I have ownership over my own life, right? And so I think when you start saying yes to so many things, you start finding yourself running around and tending to everything and putting out fires everywhere. And so I recently read a quote, and I think it's pretty popular, where, to try to do the important and not the urgent. And so to the extent that you can, always make sure that you're staying in control and saying, okay, when I wake up in the morning, what are the 5 most important things I need to accomplish today? And focus on those, as opposed to, again, just tending to everybody else's needs all the time. I think that's kind of going to, it's going to help a lot. So.
Okay, great, thanks. Let's give them all a hand. So we've got a question for you this morning to discuss at your tables. What is the one action step you'll take this week from what you've heard this morning? So why don't you discuss that as a group real quick, and then Marvin will come up.
What's certain is that there's a growing constellation of emerging leaders and leaders that are hungry. And you see that in our community by these new programs, these leadership development programs that are popping up everywhere. I think Katie said with all the acronyms and all that. And so there's a thirst for that. I want to share with you, strengthening young leadership and emerging leadership is one of our City Ministry Networks, one of our initiatives. And I want to share with you just real quick 6 things that we're learning as we are working to nurture and to listen to listen to the young and those that are emerging leaders. And let's see if any of these will strike you as valuable. The first thing I want to say to you is be a guide alongside, not a sage on the stage. And so that's just coming alongside them and being their friend. So being a guide alongside. And I'm not going to explain all these. Listen and hear. Learn to ask penetrating questions. Some of us, somebody made the comment about the gray hair. Some of us are very good at 3-point outlines in teaching. And I want to encourage you to learn how to ask questions and really hear. Really listen. The other thing I want to encourage you with that we're learning is fueling a warm community, a place of mutual support and encouragement. And Yamilet mentioned multicultural, multi-generational. When we, over the last year, we'd say, well, let's go ahead and let's start a leadership development or just a place for the single ones, the ones that aren't married, or the ones that are married but not the single, and we got poo-pooed on that one. Can I say poo-pooed on that? Was that in this? Okay. We just got poo-pooed. No, we want multicultural, multi-generational, and so we're learning that to create a space of mutual support and encouragement. And that phrase, I was talking to, I think, Tim yesterday, Kevin Williams yesterday, he's around here somewhere, there he is. Me too, hearing this phrase, yeah, me too. I remember, yeah, me too. I felt that way, or I've thought that way, or I understand when you really can understand. When you can't understand, don't say it. But a place of mutual support and encouragement. We're learning about mobilizing to motivate, to not just saying, let's go through a 6-week training program so you can go do it. No, let's go do it. Have me go do it, and let's figure out how we can learn along the way by making mistakes and learning together. Reinforcing and strengthening what they're already doing, not creating new projects for them. Now, the 3 that are up here, the 4 that are up here, I'm confident I know them. They are busy. They got a lot going on. I don't need to add anything else on them to do. So how can I come alongside them? How can we come alongside them and help them, strengthen them and encourage them and support them in what they're already doing? Listening, I mentioned that already. Listening and learning to ask penetrating questions. And the last thing is prioritizing an investment in developing of emerging leaders. And I know with this sense in us that there's this groundswell of young leaders and emerging leaders, whether they're young or old, truth of it is we want to prioritize the development of them by mobilizing them, putting them to work, and then figuring out how they can learn from the mistakes and from our own mistakes as well. Those are some of the things that we're learning as City Ministry Network. We're prioritizing it. We have prioritized it, and we're being intentional to invest in this coming generation. And we really would like to hand them over a wonderful city, like Katie said, for her kids to grow up in. So I'm hoping I've already asked them, they will be around a little bit to answer questions. So if you've got some questions, even if you want to encourage them and just thank them for investing, we can always take an attaboy or a yay or great job, or here's one thing that I took away from what you said and I want to think about that, or thank you. So let me mention to you just a couple of things, and we'll get you out of here so you can keep talking with each other and connecting, because that's far more important than the sage on the stage. So first thing, next month at City Ministry Network, we've got an incredible presenter coming next month, and is going to give us just where City Ministry Network is going, what this is about, and where we think we want to go in the future, where the wild goose is chasing us and is leading us. So I don't know exactly what I'll say yet, but it'll be incredible. I just know that for sure. Go Marlin. That's right. Go Marlin. That's right. Over the last year and a half, there was some of you women who bubbled to the surface that said, we need a place for women who are in business to be inspired and encouraged. And so out of this group is another catalyst. We call it Inspire, and it is Inspire for business women. It's once a month. There's the information behind us. They meet at La Familia Bistro on McHenry. And if you are looking, ladies, for a place of mutual support and encouragement, this is the place for you. Another catalyst model that's been bubbled into the surface is Recovery Modesto. For those of you who are working in the social services around substance abuse, around constituencies that have more challenges maybe than some of us, some other constituents. So they meet once a month just down the street from here, and that information is for you. And again, those are specific areas and spaces that we've created for mutual support and encouragement. And it's not us, City Minister Network, who've created it, but some of you out here who've said, this is an area, a need that we need. We would like to do it. And so we've come alongside you and supported you and resourced you the best we can in your dream of fulfilling a wellness in our community. So Inspire, Recovery Modesto, and then the last thing, and then I'm going to leave you alone, is also we invite you to partner with us financially. We'll be talking about that. I'm not going to tell you we're going to say that next month because then none of you will come. But anyway, we're a faith-based nonprofit. And if you were interested in the Holy Spirit or somebody in your head's telling you to resource us, invest in us financially, if you've had some benefit and some value, please come see us. Let us know. We'd be grateful to have you partner with us financially. So, all righty. Let me thank God for you, and then I'm going to let you talk. Master, thank you for the privilege you give us to be your sons and daughters. And for Katie, Yamilet, for Reggie, for Kris. I see so many others in this room who are emerging leaders and emerging influencers. Master, may all of us together create this space, a culture, an environment of mutual support and encouragement, and figure out how we can work together, to collaborate together, to co-labor for the sake and the wellness of the city and for the citizens in it. Lord, I know that each one in this room are already doing some incredible work and are already investing. So encourage them where they are. And you just mentioned to me there, if there's anybody this morning that just needs some encouragement because, man, they have had a hard week or they are facing challenges that they don't have a clue how they're going to overcome them or face them. May you draw somebody to them to encourage them or give them the humility to admit. And thank you, Lord, for what you're doing in us. In Christ's name.